Some houses keep memories in their walls. Others keep something worse. When the Morgan family moved into their new home, they thought the attic was just filled with dust and forgotten boxes. But among the clutter sat a porcelain doll, one that looked exactly like their youngest daughter. And each night it looked a little more alive. The Morgans had always dreamed of escaping the cramped city. James and Rachel, the parents, yearned for a slower life for their 3 children. Tyler, their 16-year-old, was perpetually moody and glued to his phone. Anna, 12, possessed a curious and skeptical nature. And then there was little Sophie, the 7-year-old sunshine of the family, whose laughter could brighten even the gloomiest of days. Their new house was an old one, built in the 1800s. It creaked and groaned with every step, its wooden floors whispering tales of generations past. The wide attic, perched at the top of a narrow staircase, smelled of cedar and dust, a scent that spoke of secrets long forgotten. "Don't go playing up there, it's not safe," Rachel had warned her children, her voice tinged with motherly concern. But Sophie's eyes had lit up the first time she peeked inside, her imagination already running wild with the possibilities hidden in the shadowy corners. One lazy afternoon, as the family unpacked their lives into their new home, Sophie vanished. The usual patter of her feet and the echo of her giggles fell silent. Panic rising in her chest, Anna climbed the stairs, calling her sister's name. She found Sophie in the attic, cradling something in her arms, a look of wonder on her small face. It was a porcelain doll, its features hauntingly familiar. Its hair was brown, cut in the same bob as Sophie's. Its blue eyes gleamed glassy in the dim light, seeming to follow Anna's movements. And its dress, though faded and old, looked eerily like Sophie's own yellow sundress. "She was waiting for me," Sophie whispered, her voice filled with childlike awe. Anna felt a shiver run down her spine. "It's just a doll, Soph," she said, trying to sound reassuring despite the unease settling in her stomach. When Rachel discovered the doll and tried to take it away, Sophie's reaction was explosive. She clung to it, screaming and crying until her parents relented, exchanging worried glances over their daughter's head. The next morning brought a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. Rachel stood frozen in Sophie's doorway, her eyes wide with disbelief. The doll, which Sophie had left sitting upright on her dresser, was now lying in bed beside her. But it wasn't just its position that had changed. Its dress was no longer yellow. It was pale blue, the exact shade of the pajamas Sophie had worn to sleep the night before. Rachel wanted to throw it out immediately, her maternal instincts screaming that something was terribly wrong. But James, ever the voice of reason, convinced her it was just Sophie playing, probably changing the doll's clothes in the night. Except when they asked her, Sophie swore she hadn't touched it, her eyes wide and honest. Days passed, each bringing new oddities that centered around the doll. Every morning its outfit inexplicably matched Sophie's clothes from the day before. If Sophie scraped her knee playing in the yard, the doll's porcelain leg showed a faint crack in the same spot by nightfall. At dinner one evening, Anna leaned across the table, her voice a hushed whisper. "It's copying her," she said, her eyes darting nervously to where the doll sat propped in a chair, as if it were part of the family. Tyler, in typical teenage fashion, rolled his eyes dramatically. "It's just a stupid doll," he scoffed. "You're all losing it." But his bravado was short-lived. That night, driven by a mix of curiosity and a desire to prove his sisters wrong, Tyler ventured into the attic. The floorboards creaked beneath his feet, and then he heard it. Footsteps behind him, tiny, deliberate steps that didn't match his own. Heart pounding, he spun around. There, in the center of the floor, sat the doll. Its head was tilted toward him, its glassy eyes seeming to bore into his soul. Rachel's unease grew with each passing day. She wanted to get rid of the doll, to throw it out or burn it, anything to remove its unsettling presence from their home. But James, ever the peacemaker, argued that Sophie would be heartbroken. And Sophie herself had grown more attached to the doll with each passing hour. She talked to it constantly, brushing its hair, whispering secrets to it at night as if it were her closest confidant. One evening, driven by a mix of concern and curiosity, Anna pressed her ear to Sophie's closed door. She expected to hear her sister's voice, perhaps talking to the doll in the one-sided conversations of childhood. Instead, she heard two distinct voices, one Sophie's and the other, higher, sharper, utterly foreign. The changes in the doll became more pronounced, more unsettling. Its smile seemed to grow wider, its glass eyes warmer, almost alive. But as the doll appeared to gain vitality, Sophie began to fade. She grew paler, weaker, quieter. At breakfast, she barely spoke, pushing food around her plate with disinterest. But the doll, its lips looked less stiff now, almost soft, almost real. Tyler, his skepticism shattered by what he'd seen in the attic, demanded they burn the doll. His voice shook as he pleaded with his parents, insisting that something was terribly wrong. James, finally swayed by his son's fear and his wife's growing terror, agreed. But when he tried to lift the doll from Sophie's bed, he found he couldn't move it. It was as if it had become part of the fabric of the house itself. "She wants to stay," Sophie said, her voice flat and emotionless. The family exchanged horrified glances, the weight of their situation settling heavily upon them. In the dead of night, Anna woke to the sound of laughter. Not Sophie's familiar giggle, but something higher, sharper, a sound that sent ice through her veins. She rushed to her sister's room, her heart pounding so loudly she was sure it would wake the entire house. The bed was empty, the covers thrown back as if Sophie had just gotten up. And there, propped against the pillows, sat the doll. It wore Sophie's nightgown, the fabric draping over its porcelain body, in a way that seemed impossible for mere cloth. But it was the doll's hands that made Anna's breath catch in her throat. They were no longer stiff and unyielding. They were jointed now, flexible, almost ... human. The family searched frantically, the attic, every room in the house, the yard, the street beyond. But there was no sign of Sophie, just the doll, sitting on her bed, its smile wider now, satisfied, victorious. Rachel clutched the doll to her chest, screaming for her daughter, begging the universe to give Sophie back. And then, ... the impossible happened. The doll blinked. Its porcelain eyelids slid over glassy eyes, and when they opened again, they were wet with tears. It whispered in Sophie's voice, soft and sweet and terrifying. "I told you she wanted to stay." They never found Sophie Morgan. The police report lists her as a missing child, another tragic statistic in a world where children sometimes vanish without a trace. But in the attic of that house, in a locked trunk that no one dares to open, sits a porcelain doll. Her hair is real now, soft brown strands that grow a little longer each day. Her eyes are wet with tears that never seem to dry. And every night, if you listen closely, you can hear her crying, begging to come home. But the house does not let go. It keeps its secrets, its memories, and sometimes something far worse. The Morgan family learned this truth too late. Their lives forever changed by the doll in the attic. A reminder that some things are best left undisturbed, some doors best left closed. And in quiet neighborhoods across the country, families move into old houses, drawn by charm and history and the promise of a fresh start. They explore dusty attics and forgotten corners, never knowing what might be waiting for them, waiting to be found, waiting to be loved, waiting to take their place. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed that story. If you did, please subscribe DarkWhisper AI. Leave a comment. The next episode will be up soon. Don't miss. Goodbye.